Hello, welcome everyone. I hope you can all hear me. It's great to have you along. Happy International Women's Day. Thanks for coming along tonight. We're here to celebrate women and girls in football in Tassie, and also, I guess, look forward and think about what our future holds for us. So we've got a pretty jam-packed 45 minutes for the session. And we've got a panel that we're going to talk to fairly soon, but I guess I'll introduce myself. My name is Amy Bailey and I work for AFL Tas. I'm the Women and Girls Community Football Lead. And my role here is really about supporting and increasing female participation in all aspects of football. So I'm really excited to be in this role, to be able to host this event tonight, and really excited to be able to be talking to some incredible women that have done some really incredible things for football across Australia, and particularly in Tassie as well. Before we do sort of kick off with the panel, I just wanted to first, on behalf of AFL, acknowledge the traditional owners of the various lands on which people are listening in from on the webinar. I am personally on the lands of the Murri-Minna people, but this webinar has attendees from all parts of Tassie, Wuetschner and beyond. So therefore, I'd like to pay my respects to all elders past, present and emerging, and also welcome any Indigenous people joining us here on the webinar this afternoon. So today's International Women's Day, so happy International Women's Day. It's a day to review how far women have come, but it's also an opportunity to unite and mobilise for meaningful change. And this is what I'm hoping to do with the session today, to reflect on how far we've come in footy in such a short time, and to feel united and empowered to go away and make meaningful change in our lives and in footy. Before I introduce the amazing panellists, I really wanted to firstly take a moment to congratulate and thank all of you that are here tonight for your contributions, and for those that aren't, all around Tasmania, for what you've done for women and girls, particularly in Tasmania in football. It's been a lot in a really short time, and it's taken a lot of courage to change a culture, and it takes incredible passion and determination. It takes good people doing really great things. So thank you. Thank you to all of the men and women in Tassie that have been part of that and been our champions. And I hope you're able to see what this has really meant for all the people that it's impacted. You've helped to provide opportunities for women and girls to not only belong, but to thrive in footy, both on and off the field. We've got a way to go, but we've really come such a long way in such a short time. And it's taken a community of heroes like yourselves. I just wanted to kind of touch on just a couple of things that I thought was worth reflecting as far as, you know, how far we've come and the progress that's been made. So during the 2022 season, we've had over 3,500 girls, women and girls, playing community football in Tassie. And if we go back even earlier than that, between 2016 and 2019, we saw a 300% increase in participation. 300%, that's astronomical. We've seen lots of firsts in female participation in Tassie. First-time head coaches, first-time AFLW umpires, first-time presidents, first-time roles created that are focused on women's participation, like myself, but also women's directors in football clubs. We've seen first-time players, first-time teams, and first-time premierships. And at the moment, almost half of our school engagement is done with girls. We've also seen loads of schools now establishing girls' competitions, and women and girls getting much more opportunities to participate now more than ever. So all really, really exciting stuff, and I think worth recognising and worth celebrating and worth acknowledging. And that's because of so many incredible people putting in so much effort. So a shout out to everyone who has done that. I know there is, you know, it takes a village to make this change. So just really wanted to acknowledge all of the efforts of the people that it's taken to get us to where we are. So let's get into it and kick things off with our panel guests. As we all know, footy offers so many things for so many people. It isn't just about playing the game, but of course that's, one of the most incredible parts. It's also about organising, leading, officiating, governing, and reporting. We've got a diverse group of women involved with football to highlight different pathways and opportunities in footy tonight. What I would say is I've got some questions that I've already sent out to our panelists. If you want to send through any questions, they'll come through to me. I'm not sure that we'll have time. If we do, I'm happy to ask them. But hopefully what I've provided them will be a really good insight for you all. So on the panel, we have Jodie Clifford. Jodie has recently been appointed as the Devils girls under 18s and under 16s coach. Previous to that, Jodie was assistant coach of the Devils program for 4 years, assistant coach of Georgetown Football Club for 2 years, and playing assistant coach and captain at North Launceston Women's Footy Club. We've also got Jess Wuetschner. Jess started her football at around 16 with Clarence Footy Club and then moved to Perth, WA to play for East Fremantle. Jess was selected to play for the Bulldogs in the exhibition match against Melbourne back in 2015 and has played in the US through an exchange program. In 2016, Jess was drafted to Brisbane Lions, playing in their first women's team. Jess has also been named in All-Australian teams, club leading goal kicker, and has one of those incredible premiership medals. She is also now playing with Essendon Footy Club and was our first Tasmanian ever drafted to AFLW. And then finally, last but not least, we have Sally Boud. She is an AFL goal umpire from Western Australia. Sally was the first ever female AFL umpire from WA. She started at this level in 2016 and has now umpired over 60 AFL games. In 2022, Sally was voted in the top 50 most influential football figures in Western Australia. She's currently on maternity leave with a 12-week-old baby boy, who you may or may not see during the Q&A. And she's also taken on a coaching and mentoring role in AFLW and the Waffle during her maternity leave. So, welcome to all of you ladies. Thank you so much for coming along. We'll kick it off with our first question, and I might go straight to you, Jodie. So our first question is focused on progress and celebrating how far we've come in footy. I was hoping you'd be able to reflect on something that stands out for you that you're proud of as far as progress goes.
Yeah, and I guess in terms of like I'm in the age group where playing footy probably wasn't an option for me. I'm that little bit too old, so I can play footy at a community level. But I guess the big thing for me is in terms of progress is that all of our young people coming through can start playing footy in Auskick, and particularly our young girls can play all the way through in a girls competition. And they have some people to really look up to. And I heard a quote the other day was, you can't be what you can't see. And the big progress for me is now that every young person between the ages of 2 years old and 15 years old can see what they want to be. And they've really got that that view of where they can get to if they want that pathway. So for me, the progress is astronomical in that, because growing up, the only thing that I could see was men playing footy, and that was all that was on the telly. So to have our women and to have an AFLW competition that our young people, if they want to play professional footy and at the highest level, that they can actually see that happening on the screens in front of them and go, hey, that's what I want to be.
I love that. Thanks, Jodie. I love that quote, you can't be what you can't see. I feel like I'm saying it all the time at the moment. What about you, Jess?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me, and hello to everyone that's attending. Yeah, I guess I'm pretty similar to Jodie, except I was lucky enough to be young enough to be able to be a part of the AFLW from the start. I think we were talking before about, for me, the progress that I can visually see from experience is the first time I ever played football was in Tasmania when I was 16 years old, and we had 3 teams across the entire state, which meant that we were travelling every weekend or every second weekend to play either in Launceston or Devonport at the time. And I haven't been in Tassie for 10 years living there, but every time I come back, I'm amazed by particularly in Tasmania, the growth that has come through women's football in that sort of period of time of 10 years. So, you know, in terms of progress, just seeing how much it's growing at community levels and how much access women of all ages have to the sport is something that is truly amazing and been a really good thing since the AFLW particularly has started.
What were the 3 teams?
I think it was Devonport East Devonport, Launceston and Clarence at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been a huge commitment starting out too and having to travel all over the state.
I think that's what made it fun at the time is, you know, it wasn't overly serious back then, and it was sort of like you'd be traveling with your mates up to Devonport 3.5 hours, however long it takes, you know, and it's a bit of fun, but it was a big commitment, especially when, you know, people are having to take time off work or away from their families to travel for a whole day on a weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sally, what about you?
Beautiful. Firstly, thank you again, Amy, for organising this. This is a space that we're really passionate over here in WA. I think when I reflect on progress within an umpiring space and women over the 18 years, it starts off with small things like we never had female uniform. We used to have to go out and umpire in male clothing. And when you're not comfortable in what you're wearing, how are you supposed to execute your craft at the best level possible? So that's huge for me. We used to have to share change rooms with our male colleagues. So things like that, and now it's mandatory in most of our clubs that we have to have that female space, which is adequate to our needs as well. And then we look at like our big things, particularly in the AFL, is when I started my career back in 2016 at an AFL level, I didn't think it would be possible to have a family and keep my career. So, you know, I put that off for as long as I could. And then the surprise came that, you know, the family was going to happen. And fortunately now over the last 12 months, we've created this maternity policy. So with all these other female umpires coming through now, they can have their career and start their family. So we're lucky now. Chelsea is back this year after her stint off in the 2022 season, having her daughter Bonnie, and then myself, I'm off for this year and hopefully returning next year after the 12 months with James. So it's a really exciting space for the girls coming through.
And I think it's a different journey, right? Especially for women who want to have a family and being able to have access to the career that you want, and those you know, those changes made to really support that is just so important, because otherwise it just becomes another barrier to participating, right?
Oh, 100%. And I love that expression that Jodie said before. I was meant to touch on that when I started, was that saying, you can't be what you can't see. It is such a pivotal and important one for the girls coming through these days. So it's on us to show them what they can be.
Absolutely. All right, into our second question. So for International Women's Day 2023, the theme was Embrace Equity. I just wanted to get your thoughts or get your sense of what that kind of means to you in your footy careers and in your lives. We might just go around the same pattern that we did. So, Joes, if you want to jump in. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. It's an interesting one because I think equity means something different for lots of different people. And obviously we're here because we're talking about gender equity and making sure that females in our space, and in particularly historically a male-dominated space, have a voice and have an opportunity to be able to explore that pathway in whichever way that might be. But equity means so many different things to so many different people. And it might be gender equity, like there's so many different things. So it's a really broad term. And I think the beautiful thing is I was at a session with the AFL last week as part of an induction, and 40% of the workforce at the AFL across Australia is female. And it's like that's significant growth. And it goes to show that within this industry, there's so many steps and so many things being put in place to ensure that there's equity across the space. And I guess I think in terms of my footy and in the pathways that I've been involved in, and the community level footy is probably a thing that I'm really passionate about, is how do we continue to ensure that that girls have all of the things, or the female teams have all of the things that the male teams have, and we learn from some of the things that have happened in the male football space that maybe haven't been great for our game, and then we can use those to learn from. And I guess the AFL's policy around the colour of shorts, like why girls wearing white shorts, and this has been one that I've been arguing about probably since I started playing, and particularly in the state league at North Launceston. And I just kept saying, why are we wearing white shorts? Like, we don't play with black and white TV anymore. Like, that was the purpose of them apparently when it was brought in, that rule. And so it's really pleasing that we've got to that point where we don't have to do things the same as the way the men have done things to be equitable. There's got to be some differences in what we do and the way we support the girls in our programs to ensure that equity is reached in the most meaningful way possible.
That's a hard one to follow. You've pretty much hit the nail on the head there.
I don't really know what I said, but we'll go with that.
No, I mean, you're right. Equity is different to different people. And for me, in my space, it's about having a fair environment, I think. And it's something that I've found from the start of my AFLW career to now is within the space and within the facilities at Essendon, it's completely fair, and it's everyone has their own space. Everyone can come into the gym at the same time. You know, it's that respect, and that's, you know, if the men have a scheduled session on, we don't come in because it's scheduled, but around that, we have full access to the facilities, to the coaches, to everything. So I think from the start of when we had that at Brisbane to where I'm at now, that's already grown. And I think to continue to grow that sort of, I guess, feeling of being in an environment where it is fair and everyone has that same, access and ability to have those, I guess, facilities on and off the field is something that I found makes a huge difference in how we feel within our environment as female athletes and how we feel valued within that. So I guess continuing to build on that throughout the years, and then obviously on field and off field, you're always going to have people that maybe put the female sport down. And I think continuing to educate people around that is going to bring that, I guess, equity into it, because you're not going to change everyone's mind. But if you can continue to educate and change certain people's minds, and that spreads to other people within their families and other people within their communities, and I think that's going to build a really good foundation to where women's football and women's sport in general can get to in that sort of fair space as well.
Great. Sally?
Beautiful. I think what I like about this space, obviously, with umpiring, we're directly compared to our male colleagues. When we started, our time trials were the same and our skin folds were the same, and you know, physiologically we're not the same. So why are we being graded and compared to the same benchmarks as these men? And we have moved on from that. But also, you don't know what you don't know. So if they're not asking questions, we need to respectfully challenge those stereotypes in order to make the change for those girls coming through. So that's probably my big one, is ask the questions and challenge those stereotypes in order to make sure, that we are embracing the equality on every asset. And then hopefully we won't have to consciously think of it from that unconscious bias thing that I think we're all predisposed to within the environment that we've been brought up with all these years. Is it just becomes naturally, no matter our gender, our background, everyone's accepted because we all bring such a unique and different perspective to this environment.
Fantastic points. I think it's a really interesting one. There's a lot of legacy pieces carried over from men's football applied to women's that don't necessarily work for women's football and for AFLW. So being able to challenge some of that, you know, like the white shorts, for example, and just go, actually, that doesn't really work for us. Can we change that? it's important, but it takes people to stand up and kind of challenge some of that, which requires a supportive and environment, doesn't it? Which hopefully people are getting. If we go into the third question, footy is a team sport, obviously, and women's participation in football, which has traditionally been a male-dominated space, is a challenge. Just wanting you to share sort of one of the best kind of pieces of advice that you've had throughout your journey that has stuck with you and helped you.
I'm up first, am I?
Go on.
Yeah, why not? The best piece of advice. Yeah, okay. I think probably wasn't given to me, but I'm going to impart it on to those, is the sky's the limit. So you don't know where you can get to if you don't have a go. And I'm really fortunate that the space that I work with in the talent program enables me to give that message every day to the athletes that I work with and the players that I coach. So it's a really that self-belief, and if you give your all, then you don't know where you might be able to get to. The only thing that's probably going to limit you is your own beliefs. So how can we help you to change them? If somebody had asked me 5 years ago, would I be coaching the Tassie under-18 girls team, I would have been like, are you kidding? Like, I've played 3 games of football in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. So, and so again, like by taking risks and just having a go at something that might make you a little bit uncomfortable, I think there's so much power in that. And you can change the game, and whether that be here in Tassie or whether that be future generations. And one of the big things as we come into jumper presentation, which is a really important time for the Tassie teams that play, because historically wearing the map is something that they're really proud of, and something that they really connect to, is that we'll talk about that there isn't really a history for the girls that are currently playing now around women's football in Tasmania, but they're creating the history. So in 50 years' time, when there's a young girl and they're pulling the map on, you guys have created a history that they'll be able to explore, and they'll be able to think about the things that you guys learnt from your game and the stories that you'll be able to tell to inform them and change the game for them. So I'm all about, with the girls, that we're creating history and that you don't know how far you can go until you go there.
Great. I love that. I'd love to wear the Tassie map.
I was grateful I got to do that a couple of times when I was a bit younger. It's something that you do cherish forever, and I'm sure something that a lot of the young girls will be striving to do back down there in the homeland. So yeah, I guess for me, on my side of things, I think the difference is, like, being at the elite level is there's not as much scrutiny on us, but it's almost like it's worse in terms of a lot of the stuff that we do get is about us in terms of our skill level, in terms of how we're not as good as the men and things like that. So from that perspective, my advice is to just ignore it and to really focus in on what's important on for you, and then obviously for what you want to get out of female sport. And in this space, I think we've done a really good job at creating a community that allows us to lean on people and allows us to have that space where we can have conversation if it's something that's affecting you in terms of this. Can you, 1 second, I have a cat. I don't have a baby and he's scratching at the door. 1 second.
Do you
Jess, you're making me feel better about myself. Yeah. Yeah, I'll jump in really quickly.
You're welcome.
Jess, she's back. She's back. I'll let her carry on.
Sorry, he was trying to get outside. There's a bird out there, so yeah, sorry, apologies. Yeah, so just in terms of that, yeah, try and lean on the people around you if you're in a space where being in a male-dominated environment is tough. But for me, ever since I've been in the AFLW, I laugh. You know, if you get the comments that just like they can really hit home, you just kind of got to laugh at it, because you think, why would a person want to try and put down something that we're building that's so incredible and so amazing for such, you know, young women older women, everyone that's involved. I mean, I know for a fact that my mum never watched footy in her life. She didn't care for footy. She started watching the women's footy, loved it. Now she watches the men's just as much as the women. So having that environment to bring in, to have people come into the sport that have never watched it before, it also transpires into the men's space. So we're doing it for each other, and I think we need to remember that.
That's a really good point. And I think there's been a lot of people that have changed from, you know, not being into footy at all, that are now into footy because of women's footy.
100%.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's a lot to gain from, yeah, and a lot to learn from AFLW and what women's teams and women bring to footy clubs. They're such different environments now because of our participation.
Definitely.
Sally.
Yeah, I find this a really interesting point. When I first started umpiring, I just wanted to blend in with the crowd and be one of the boys and, you know, not draw attention to myself. And then as my career evolved, I then realised, well, I'm not going to make changes unless I become the voice. And my big one is you need to be your own advocate and you need to believe in your own abilities. So by becoming my own advocate, I'm just going to keep going until they say no. And now this is what I try to impart on all the girls down at the Waffle and the wider community. And like you say, nothing's impossible. And what's the harm in asking? The worst thing they're going to do is say no. So be your own advocate and go until you say no. And then we become the advocates for the girls that are to follow, because we need to leave this a better place than what we found it. And I think we're definitely moving into that direction. I don't think the space is anything like it was when the three or the four of us started to get involved in football all those years ago.
Love that. And if you've got each of you, if you can reflect on sort of what you'd like to see, you know, as we've talked about, there's been so much progress in a really short time, and it's taken incredible people creating those pathways and being huge champions and fighting for what they want and what they think is fair and right. If you have a big dream or, you know, something that you're hoping to see change in the future, what is it? What sort of jumps out at you that you still want to see change?
Yeah, for me, it's obviously it's around that coaching space, and it's to see more females coaching across. So at the moment, I think we've seen a really big spike in females coaching in female spaces. But for me, it's around how do we share the knowledge, and there's no doubt that the male knowledge of the game is huge, and I don't underestimate that. And I'm so thankful that I've got some colleagues around me every day that have got a different skill set to me that help me through my current role. But I think for me, it's around how do we seeing women coaching in a men's space and being head coaches in that male space across all levels of footy. So whether that's females coaching under 10 boys teams, females coaching senior community footy, and females coaching at the AFL and in that AFLW space, I think is the huge growth area for me and what I would like to see. And that's going to be a work in progress, obviously, but as the knowledge of those people that are coming through, there's absolutely no reason why that can't happen. And I think what females bring to the footy space is more about that nurture and that relationship and that culture. And I think there's a huge, particularly in the high performance space, I feel like that's a huge game changer. And we've seen like Richmond touch on the culture and the 3 H's and things like that. And I think the females bring that space probably more naturally than what the male coaches do. So something that the male coaches have to evolve to, that it's not just all push-ups and sprint running punishments, but it's actually more, we've got to get in touch with our vulnerable side, and we've got to let people see that we're actually humans as well. And I think that probably comes a little bit more naturally to females. And so I think that space, that's the big growth space for me, and I think that'll happen in the next couple of years. I think we'll see a huge spike in that, and then we'll see some plateauing out of some things.
Great, I love that, and we're certainly really keen in Tassie to see an increase in women and girls coaching. As you've touched on, Jodes, it's not, I think we're sitting at 11% at the moment of our coaches are women and girls. So it's been a slower incline than the playing space. But I definitely think it's moving. And as you said, you know, there's a bit of momentum there, which is really exciting to see. Brings a whole different dynamic to footy clubs as well. What about you, Jess?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see it mostly from the higher level of sort of a vision. So for me in the AFLW, I think something that I think we're getting really close to is stability. I don't think we've had it in the last 7 years in terms of when we're playing, where we're playing, how much we're getting paid, all that sort of stuff. So the AFLPA have worked really hard on getting us a joint CBA. Hopefully that all goes through soon. So we have that stability for 4 years of knowing when the season is, you know, the payment tiers and things like that. So I think within getting that, it's going to attract more people to actually play the sport and want to go to that highest level because, you know, they're not wondering when am I going to have to work, you know, in the off season. Oh, I'm a footballer. I'm playing from here to here and I'm getting paid enough to do that. And I think we're really close to getting to that point, which is really exciting to see. And I guess my overall biggest goal is probably stemming off the women's cricket a little bit is a packed game at the G, you know, like a big, like, you know, females playing in stadiums and having 100,000 fans there watching them, you know, on the biggest day in, I don't know, when the end of the season in November with women's footy, you know. So I think that's really my biggest, like, what I want to see is the game grow to that of you know, us playing in stadiums, filling stadiums, and the fans just absolutely enjoying a day out at women's footy.
I love that. I went to the AFLW grand final in November, the second one last year. And I must say I was just so stoked to see how many people were at the ground. I mean, it wasn't a, you know, stadium ground necessarily like the MCG, but it was a really good crowd, a really good turnout, and just packed house, which was really exciting to see, and just so many passionate people there. I was going for Melbourne, so I was in the minority because obviously it was in Brisbane. And I had a few looks when I got really loud, but you know,
I was going for Melbourne as well, so
it was a good outcome for us.
Yes.
And what about you, Sally?
I think mine's an overarching for all females in footy is just a seamless integration. Obviously, women in footy are different, whether we're playing, coaching, umpiring, it all looks very different in those individual spaces. So my dream is that we all become so integrated without a second thought. It's just the new normal, and we are just of that equal playing ground, and we're looked at equally when we go for those jobs or those roles or that position. And when our daughters and our daughters' daughters watch football, it's just the normal. We're just integrated seamlessly, and where it was just a male-dominated world is just a thing of the past and something that we talk about. Do you remember when? So that is my big dream.
I really love that. I often say to my partner, I can't wait for the day that when we just talk about footy and it's not AFL or AFLW, it's just footy and everyone plays footy, and that is the norm. We've probably got a way to go to get there, but I'm just so excited that, you know, we'll probably be a part of that process and we'll be able to see, you know, the journey from start to finish.
It's happening.
It is, yeah. The revolution's happening. Any final words of advice for Tasmanians that are watching now, that'll watch later? Anything that you want to kind of impart or you know, provide advice to them that are, you know, girls out in footy clubs or you know, on boards or you know, starting out their coaching journeys, anything that you think would be worth sharing for them? Go on.
I was going to let somebody else go first this time.
We're just creatures of habit. We can't break the cycle.
Aren't we? Just do it. Like, you've got an opportunity, and you've got some amazing people that have opened the doors for you. And so whether that be in umpiring, in playing, in coaching, whether that be being a president or on the committee, is that you've got the backing now of people. So just go and do it. You'll have fun, you'll meet new people, you'll open your eyes to what could possibly be. So if you want to do it, find the right find a person to talk to about it, and there's some contacts here that I'm sure would be happy to help you on what the next step is. But reach out, ask for some support, and then do it, because you've got this, girl.
That's great. Love that. I guess from my perspective is, you know, for me, it's a really competitive environment, and footy is a really large chunk of my life. But I think for a period, I made it everything, and you don't have to do that. I think it's really important to have that balance with obviously striving for your dreams, but also living your life a little bit. So obviously 90%, if you want to get to the top level, has to be, you know, putting in that effort, you know, driving yourself to be the best, but don't forget who you are at the same time, and don't forget those around you. So lean on the people around you if you need, look after yourself, but also work really hard and strive to be the best you can.
Beautiful. I think I touched on mine before. It's go until they say no. Just keep pushing, keep challenging, and just go. What's the worst they're going to say? And that's no. So that's my one. Just go until they say no.
Actually, haven't heard that quote before, and I'm going to bank it and use it.
Yeah.
Love it. Fantastic. That is the end of the questions that I have. I want to thank you all so much for giving up your time on International Women's Day. It is I love this day every year. I send all of my amazing girlfriends texts saying, "You're wicked, good job, keep going." And to be able to speak to such powerhouses that are doing incredible things and really paving the way, and you know, the fact that you've been doing that for quite some time and will continue to do that. As we've said, you know, you can't be what you can't see, and you're all giving people an opportunity to see what's possible, and making it easier for the next generations of girls coming through to get those opportunities and to feel like they're achievable and totally doable for, you know, anyone who wants to get involved in footy. So well done to you all, and thank you again so much for coming along and having a chat with me. I am just going to touch on just a couple of things before I switch off. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly because I do want to just talk briefly about a couple of things that we have coming up. So we're really invested in you know, the future of women and girls participation in Tassie, and we really want to make sure that girls are getting opportunities all the way through from you know, 5 to 9 year olds all the way up to senior level footy. And one of the things that we're investing in for 2023 is all girls Auskick centres across the state. So giving girls an opportunity to play with girls from a young age really really gives people that opportunity to participate, as I said, from a young age with other girls. It's about creating that pathway from the get-go. So all girls Auskick centres are something that we're really keen to get up and running, and we've already got a number of centres that have put their hand up that are really keen to get that happening. We've also investing in a women and girls coaching program and an umpiring program. Both of those programs are specifically about giving girls an opportunity to build their foundational skills and trying to remove some of those barriers that may prevent girls from getting involved in the first place. So building that network and that kind of camaraderie amongst other girls starting out before they're then, you know, integrated into, you know, a coaching role or an umpiring association. So just building that confidence and those kind of early development skills. And then the other program that we're running is a leadership program, which is targeting women on boards. So we have a much lower number of females participating at a board level within our footy clubs. And we want to be able to encourage more women to get involved at a board level, but also provide them with confidence, support, skills, again, a network of other women that really helps them feel like they can thrive in those spaces. So all of these opportunities are new that we're investing in for 2023, and we're really excited to see them, see them rolling out and see what we can do to really change the future of footy for women and girls in this space. See them all on our website, which is we've got a women and girls page now, so all of the opportunities are listed there. Also, my on the screen.
You're just cutting in and out a bit, Amy.
Oh, am I? Damn it! All right. Well, I'll leave it there. Yeah, if you can see the screen, you can contact me on any of those contact details. Stop it there. Thank you so much. Happy International Women's